Hello everyone, you are on the channel Scary Story. Today, I've got a tale for you that will make you think twice before exploring abandoned places. This story comes from a viewer named Leo, who shared an experience that still gives him chills. So, turn down the lights, get comfortable, and let's dive into the mystery of the old tunnel. Leo and his friends, Mia and Sam, were what you'd call urban explorers. They loved uncovering the secrets of forgotten places, old factories, abandoned hospitals, you name it. One summer, they heard rumors about a place just outside their town, a sealed-off railway tunnel, known locally as the Whispering Tunnel. The story went that it was closed decades ago after a series of strange accidents and disappearances. The railway company officially cited geological instability. But the old-timers in town had darker theories. They spoke of strange echoes, disembodied whispers, and a feeling of being watched that permeated the very air around the tunnel's entrance. For Leo, Mia and Sam, this was the ultimate challenge. They spent a week researching, poring over old maps and newspaper archives. They found articles from the 1950s detailing the tunnel's construction and its abrupt closure just a few years later. The reports were vague about the incidents, mentioning only unfortunate events and unforeseen complications. This lack of detail only fueled their curiosity. They found a hand-drawn map online, supposedly marking a weaker section of the brick wall that sealed the entrance, a spot where they could potentially break through. The day of the expedition arrived, clear and sunny, a stark contrast to the grim task ahead. They packed their gear, heavy-duty flashlights, backup batteries, a crowbar, a first aid kit, and of course a camera to document everything. They drove as close as they could, and then hiked the rest of the way, the path growing more and more overgrown until it disappeared completely. After an hour of bushwhacking, they found it. The tunnel entrance was even more imposing in person. A massive curved arch of stone, almost swallowed by ivy and moss. A thick brick wall, stained with age and water, blocked the opening. The air around it was heavy and still, and a strange silence had fallen over the woods. Even the birds seemed to avoid this place. As they approached, a cold draft seeped from the cracks in the wall, carrying a faint, musty smell of damp earth and something else. Something faintly metallic, like old rust or blood. Sam, ever the pragmatist, tapped the brickwork with the crowbar. "This is solid," he said, his voice a little too loud in the oppressive quiet. "But the map says to check the left side, about 5 feet up." Mia shone her powerful flashlight on the spot, and they saw it, a section of brick that was slightly discolored, the mortar around it crumbling. It was their way in. It took them the better part of an hour, taking turns with the crowbar, carefully prying away the bricks one by one. The work was exhausting, and with each brick they removed, the cold draft grew stronger, the strange smell more pungent. Finally, they had an opening just large enough to squeeze through. A profound, unnatural darkness lay beyond. It was a blackness that seemed to swallow the beams of their flashlights. Leo went first. He wriggled through the hole, his heart pounding in his chest. The moment he was inside, the temperature dropped dramatically. It felt like stepping into a freezer. The air was thick and difficult to breathe. He turned and helped Mia through, then Sam. They stood together in a small huddle, their 3 flashlight beams cutting through the inky black. The tunnel stretched forward into infinity. The walls were slick with moisture, and the tracks were long gone, leaving behind 2 gravelly indentations in the ground. Water dripped from the ceiling, the sound echoing eerily down the long passage. As they started walking, their footsteps crunched on the gravel, the only sound besides the constant dripping. They had been walking for about 10 minutes when Mia suddenly stopped. "Did you guys hear that?" she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. Leo and Sam froze, straining their ears. At first there was nothing. Then they heard it. A faint sound, like a soft whisper carried on the cold air. It was impossible to make out any words, but it sounded like a multitude of voices, all murmuring at once. "It's just the wind," Sam said, trying to sound confident. but his eyes darted nervously into the darkness ahead. They pressed on, their pace a little faster now. The whispering seemed to follow them, sometimes fading, sometimes growing louder, as if it was just on the edge of their hearing. They tried to ignore it, focusing on their surroundings. Along the walls there were small alcoves carved into the rock every 100 feet or so, probably for workers to shelter from passing trains. Most were empty, but as they passed one, Leo's flashlight beam caught something on the ground. He stopped and knelt down. It was a small rusted lunchbox, the kind workers would have used back in the day. He pried it open. Inside, nestled in the corroded metal, was a small, leather-bound diary. The pages were warped and stained from the damp, but the ink was surprisingly legible. Leo read the last entry aloud, his voice echoing in the tunnel. October 14th, 1958. The whispers are worse today. Thomas went missing this morning. Just vanished. 1 minute he was working on the tracks, the next he was gone. The foreman says he must have wandered off, but we all know. The tunnel took him. It takes people. It talks to you, promises you things, shows you things you want to see, but it's a lie, a trap. I can hear it calling my name now. I have to get out. I have to warn them. Don't listen to the voices. Don't look. The entry ended there, the last few words trailing off into a frantic scribble. A chilling silence fell over the group. The fictional ghost story suddenly felt terrifyingly real. "We should go back," Mia said, her face pale. But before they could make a decision, the whispering grew louder, more distinct. This time they could hear their own names being called. Leo, Mia, Sam. The voices were sweet, alluring, seeming to come from all directions at once. They promised them everything they desired. For Leo, it was the voice of his late grandmother, telling him how proud she was. For Mia, a budding artist, it was a gallery owner offering her a solo exhibition. For Sam, who dreamed of traveling, it was the sound of an airplane ticket being printed with his name on it. It was intoxicating, hypnotic. They felt a powerful urge to walk deeper into the tunnel, towards the source of the voices. Sam started to take a step forward. His eyes glazed over. "Sam, no!" Leo yelled, grabbing his arm. The physical contact seemed to snap him out of it. What was happening?" Sam stammered, shaking his head as if waking from a dream. Suddenly, all their flashlights began to flicker at once. The beams dimmed, strobing erratically, before going out completely, plunging them into absolute terrifying darkness. Panic set in. They were miles from the entrance, with no light, and something in the tunnel was playing with their minds. The whispering intensified, no longer sweet, but mocking and sinister, swirling around them in the pitch black. They could hear a new sound now, a wet, dragging noise coming from deeper within the tunnel. It was getting closer. They fumbled for their backup lights, their hands shaking uncontrollably. Leo finally got his to work. He pointed the beam down the tunnel, and what they saw made their blood run cold. It wasn't a person. It was a shape, a mass of something dark and shifting, dragging itself along the ground. It was vaguely humanoid, but had too many limbs, all moving in an unnatural, disjointed way. It had no discernible face, just a swirling void where a head should be. And from that void, the chorus of whispers emanated. As the light hit it, the thing recoiled, letting out a screech that was a horrifying mix of a human scream and grinding metal. That was all the motivation they needed. They turned and ran. They didn't care where they were going. They just ran back the way they came, stumbling over the gravel in the dark. The dragging sound was behind them, keeping pace. The air grew thick with a putrid smell, and the whispers turned to shrieks of rage. Leo risked a glance back. The creature was gaining on them, its form seeming to stretch and contort in the darkness. They ran for what felt like an eternity, their lungs burning, their legs aching. They could feel the creature's presence just behind them, a palpable cold that clung to their backs. Just when they thought they couldn't go on, they saw it, a faint square of light ahead, the entrance. With a final burst of adrenaline, they sprinted towards it, scrambling through the small hole in the brick wall and tumbling out into the daylight. They didn't stop. They kept running, crashing through the undergrowth, not daring to look back until they reached their car. They threw their gear in the trunk, jumped inside, and sped away, leaving the whispering tunnel and its dark secrets behind. Leo says they never spoke about what happened in detail. They didn't have to. The shared terror had bonded them in a way nothing else could. He still has the diary. Sometimes on quiet nights he thinks he can hear faint whispers carried on the wind, calling his name. He knows they never really escaped the tunnel. A part of it came back with them. His advice to all of you is simple. Some places are forgotten for a reason, and some doors should never, ever be opened. Thanks for listening to Leo's terrifying story. If you have a story you'd like to share, send it to us. Stay safe out there, and remember to subscribe for more scary stories. See you next time.